For 30 years, Europe lived in a dream. It was a beautiful dream called the peace dividend. When the Berlin Wall fell and the Cold War ended, Germany, the nation that had been the epicenter of 2 world wars, decided it was done with fighting. They slashed their military budgets, sold off their tanks, and turned their barracks into shopping malls. The logic was simple. Why buy bullets when you can build cars? Why train for war when you can trade for peace? But on a cold morning in February 2022, that dream was shattered. As Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine, Berlin woke up to a nightmare. The German military, the Bundeswehr, was not just small, it was practically hollow. Reports surfaced that soldiers were training with broomsticks instead of machine guns, and that the country had only enough ammunition for 2 days of high-intensity combat. The peace dividend was over. In its place came the Zeitenwende, a historic turning point. Germany, the reluctant pacifists of Europe, realized they had no choice but to pick up the sword again. Chancellor Olaf Scholz didn't just make a speech. He wrote a check, a massive one. He announced a special defense fund of 100 billion euros. To put that in perspective, that's more than the entire annual GDP of many small nations, dropped onto the table in a single moment. So, what does a superpower buy with that kind of cash? They aren't just patching holes. They are buying a Ferrari of military hardware. Top of the list, the F-35 Lightning II. Germany ordered dozens of these American-made stealth fighters, capable of carrying nuclear weapons, signaling a massive upgrade to their air force. But it didn't stop there. They ordered heavy-lift Chinook helicopters to move troops rapidly across the continent, and the Israeli-made Arrow 3 missile defense system to create a shield over the European sky. This wasn't just a modernization. It was a total overhaul. Germany was essentially trying to buy 20 years of missed military development in 20 months. But here is where the story gets complicated. You can't just click buy now on an army and have it delivered the next day with Amazon Prime. The German military machine was rusted shut. For decades, the Bundeswehr had been strangled by bureaucracy. Simple orders for backpacks or helmets could take months of committee meetings. When the order came to rearm, the system choked. We saw reports of radio equipment that was 40 years old, so old it couldn't talk to the modern radios of Germany's NATO allies. Even the legendary Leopard 2 tanks, arguably the best in the world, were in short supply. Germany had sold so many of them to other countries during the peace years that they barely had enough for themselves. The industry is now scrambling to restart production lines that have been cold for years. It's a race against time, trying to build a war-ready force while simultaneously fixing a procurement system that is legendary for its inefficiency. You can buy all the stealth jets in the world, but they are useless without pilots. This is Germany's biggest hurdle, demographics. The German population is aging. The young generation has grown up in a strictly pacifist society where the military was often looked down upon. Joining the army wasn't seen as a prestigious career. For many, it was seen as a failure. Now, the government has to convince Generation Z that wearing the uniform is not just a job, but a necessity for survival. To fix this, there's been talk of reintroducing a form of national service, a controversial idea in a country that abolished conscription years ago. They are launching massive marketing campaigns, increasing wages, and try to rebrand the Bundeswehr from a crisis relief force back into a fighting force. They need to grow the troop numbers from 180,000 over 200,000, and right now, that looks like a mountain steeper than the Alps. As we look toward 2026 and beyond, the picture is clear. The sleeping giant has awoken, and he is putting on his armor. Germany is on track to become the conventional military backbone of NATO in Europe. This shifts the entire balance of power on the continent. For 70 years, France and Britain were the primary military heavyweights, while Germany focused on its economy. That era is ending. A rearmed Germany changes everything. It reassures Eastern European allies like Poland and the Baltic states who are terrified of Russia. It takes some of the burden off the United States. But most importantly, it signals that the holiday from history is over. Germany has realized that to protect its peace, it must prepare for war. The peace dividend is spent, and the bill has finally come due. So, is this the rise of a new military superpower in Europe, Or is it simply too little too late? I want to hear your take. Drop a comment below. If you found this update valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next deep dive into military history and modern warfare. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next battlefield.